DJ Cosher actually did it. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Here at 5FM, one of, if not my favorite song over the last, half a year, Love Is All We Need, with Jimmy Nevis on vocals. You produced a track, came up with a track. It's done so well right now on the top 40 on 5. It's spent over half a year on the chart, which is crazy, and that doesn't happen often. I think majority of that was in the top 10. It reached number 3, which is a massive thing for the South African song. Where was the decision to start immediately with vocals? Was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, conscious in the sense of like we're trying to fit a radio format. We're trying to get to the beat of the song, like get people excited, and also. Who wants to hear like a hi-hat pattern and a couple of like pads? You want to let's hear the good stuff. There was a lot of space and room for the track to grow. So often producers will create a track that obviously build, and momentum is very important, and the vocals will only go in like, let's say, a high momentum part of the song. Whereas Jimmy, obviously there's a lot of amazing talented songwriters out there. Jimmy happens to be one of them. And a lot of producers finish tracks and then send them off for vocals. And whereas this was like slightly different. This was like a collaborative process from the beginning. Like the initial production inspired the initial vocals, and then those vocals inspired the remainder of the production, which then inspired the finishing vocals. It was like step by step. It wasn't like I finished a track and sent it on.
Curtains closed in an empty room. Got nothing left to lose.
So how did that process start for you? You mentioned the piano a little bit earlier. Is that where you started this song? Is that where you start most songs?
Yeah, no. So definitely not how I start most songs. There hasn't really been a way. Just to answer that, the way that I start most songs is often dependent on the person I'm working with. And if I'm working with a singer-songwriter, they've written or they've got an idea or they've got like a basic production, and then that can be the starting point. Or often, or sometimes not. Sometimes it's just a mood and we're just talking and okay, cool, how's these chords? And you know, I do have a great team at the studio. Back in Cape Town, I've got a composer who I work with very closely. His name's Ross, and he's an absolute crazy genius. This song in particular was slightly different. I'd actually heard a song that I really like. It was I think it was a Diplo track. But like, then I just remember saying to Ross, like, okay, just to reference this track, not to like copy anything, but if we were to reference the feeling I get from this part, why am I getting this feeling? I don't understand music theory to that extent. This part of the song gives me a certain feeling. What is that feeling made of? Why does that? And he's like, oh, because the major fifth and the harmonics. And I'm like, okay, great.
And he's talking the big things now,
Exactly. So he basically dumbs it down for me. At that point, I did have it in my mind that I was going to be working with Jimmy. When I'm working with Jimmy, I'm always trying to honor his sound, which is that like classic R&B pop, with some form of uplifting moment. And I also needed to be aware that it needed to fuse with my sound somehow, allowing that dance EDM genre to like make sense. It was an interesting challenge, and that's how the song started, and having that in mind from the very beginning was an easy way for us to kind of like develop the structure of the track.
I'm honestly lost for words. All I want to do, so next time when we're covering your other song, I'm coming to Cape Town because I want to see you work. I mean, that it's so incredible, and you're right, because I think a lot of the time, and Jimmy Nevis has been boxed by the industry at times for this R&B sound, and bringing that element in, I think, has also elevated his most recent album. So I think you've had that impact as well.
Also, the those like gang vocals that come up. It's like kind of those choral vocals that actually start the song. They almost have like a gospel kind of feeling, just because of the tones that he's singing and the harmonies that he chose. And that also goes back to his early music roots. Like he was, his community and in the church. Like music has played a big role in that. So that was cool, but that wasn't my choice. He just came up with that.
If you've been going through the motions, let me hear you say.
When that part starts, if you're going through the motions, let me hear. And then that I'm not going to sing it, but you can sing it. But like people go wild, like, which is such an iconic part. In terms of what is the most dominant, let's say, instrument or dominant sound throughout the track?
So I wouldn't call it dominant, but there's a major role that there's like an electric guitar lick that plays, and I don't know like I'm very aware of it because it was one of the first sounds that we made in the track.
Yeah.
Obviously the original track had piano, and then the first sound that we made that just started giving the track this momentum, because it just sounded like a ballad at first.
Yeah.
It was, the track's at what, like it's in the mid 120 BPM. It's a fast dance track, but it sounded like a ballad, and it was slow. There was no momentum. So there was a guitar lick that goes dun, 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 dun,
Yeah,
dun, 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 dun. And that it's very basic, and a lot of my music does have very basic sounds, but if you use them correctly, and if you it opens up the harmonics in the track. So that for me was an important song in the role it played in like sonically, but also like from a momentum point of view.
Everything that Cosher and Jimmy Nevis have put into the track, take a listen to it. Thanks so much, bro. I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, what a time to be alive.
Love is all we need.
This is 5 FM.